I discovered sinister secrets on a cursed Saskatchewan farm with 12 terrifying rules to follow. The moment Sarah set foot on the ancient porch, dread clawed at her throat. The creaks echoed through the silence thick with secrets, an uninvited whisper beckoning her closer. The dilapidated farmhouse loomed tall against a bleak sky, its broken windows like hollow eyes watching. She inhaled the sharp scent of decay mingling with the sweet earthy tones of tilled soil beneath her feet. This was supposed to be their refuge, a fresh start, but instead, it felt like stepping into a tomb. Her heart pounded as she tried to shake off the gripping unease. Hand in hand, she led her 2 young children Emily and Jack inside. Dust motes danced in the thin shafts of sunlight, only adding to the eerie aura. As she unpacked their minimal belongings, the simple tasks turned ominous with every shadow that flickered in the corners of her vision. Night seemed to descend faster here, swallowing the days whole, and with it came something strange in the air. Even Emily and Jack, normally so carefree, had traded their laughter for nervous glances. The next morning, while sorting through cobwebs in the musty living room, Sarah stumbled upon an aged leather-bound journal, hidden just beneath the floorboards. Intrigued yet apprehensive, she brushed off the dirt. The moment she cracked it open, a chill shot down her spine. The script was jagged, clawing at her with 12 insidious rules, a quasi-manifesto that promised safety but whispered of impending doom. The first line read, "Never wander into the corn after dark." At first, she rolled her eyes, dismissing it as silly superstition. But Jack's wide eyes caught her attention as he began quoting, "Trust not the shadows lurking in the fields." Sarah felt a shiver crawl down her spine. Their laughter turned to conspiratorial whispers as days blurred into nights, and she found it unsettling how much they embraced the journal's eerie warnings. Her pulse quickened every time the sun dipped below the horizon. At night, the farmhouse changed. Shadows rolled through the corners of every room, and each gust of wind sounded like a low murmur, threading through the stillness. One evening, a raucous laughter echoed across the fields, a sound that didn't belong. The children's giggles twisted into something wicked as they capered around, towing the line between innocence and something far more sinister. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One fateful night, Sarah peered out of the window, her breath catching. A shadow loomed at the edge of the cornfield. The beam of moonlight illuminated something terrifying. A dark figure beckoning her children closer, its features shrouded in deceit. Panic surged through her veins as she bolted out the door, screaming for them to return. The horrifying realization struck her when she saw Jack and Emily, eyes glazed and entranced, murmuring a haunting melody that echoed the rules she'd hoped to ignore. The bone-chilling truth settled in her stomach like lead. She was losing them to whatever darkened the land. As layers of compliance cloaked this farmhouse, a wild instinct surged within her. Those 12 rules were more than mere words. They were chains anchoring her family to a horror she hadn't asked for. She realized too late that survival meant exposing herself to the very darkness she wanted to escape, and the clock was ticking. Would she sacrifice everything to protect her children from the terrible truth lurking behind those fields? Or would she become another lost soul, consumed by the cursed farm? Her heart raced as she sprinted towards her children, the night air sharp against her skin. The figure loomed larger, its form twisting like smoke, teasing the light as it danced back and forth. Each step towards Jack and Emily felt like wading through molasses. The journal's dark rules clawed at her mind, but all that mattered was pulling her children from the clutches of whatever malevolence gripped them. "Jack, Emily, come back." Her voice, usually strong, trembled as it cut through the chilling night. What was that thing? Panic clawed at her throat as the air thickened with despair. She reached for them, but the shadows seemed to stretch, grasping at her ankles, pulling her down. Suddenly, Jack and Emily turned towards her, their expressions eerily vacant. The laughter that had filled their voices was replaced by a monotone chant, a dirge that echoed through the field. Trust not the shadows lurking in the fields, they repeated it, over and over, as if entrapped in a ghastly spell. No, stop it. Panic surged as she lunged forward, trying to shake them free from the grasping darkness. As she neared, the figure pulsed, rippling like disturbed water. It held its hand out, beckoning, inviting her into the depths of its nightmarish embrace. A shudder coursed through her. She couldn't let them go near it. She stumbled, falling to her knees, breathless. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she fought the pull of despair. Her children were slipping away. She'd fail them if she didn't act fast. With trembling arms, she reached into her pocket, feeling the rough edge of the journal. Jack, Emily, listen to me, please, she shouted, her voice cracking with desperation. The whispers from the fading light of her children faltered. Just for a moment. She seized the opening. You are not alone. You are with me. She held the journal high, hoping it would be enough. But the shadows recoiled, thrumming with agitation, swirling around her in malevolent spirals. The chilling whispers grew louder. You cannot stop what is destined. Each word thrummed with malice, filling her with dread as the air grew colder around her. No, I will not lose my children. The strength of a mother surged through her. With a fierce scream, she opened the journal to an empty page, whispering the rules back to the dark, defying the very nature of what had ensnared her family. Never wander into the corn after dark. Her voice grew steadier with each word. Suddenly the words weren't just warnings. They were a barrier. She envisioned a wall separating them from the sinister figure, a bright light emerging from the journalist's pages. Jack and Emily paused, their vacant eyes sparkling for just a moment with clarity, a flicker of recognition. Mom? They called, their voices trembling like the last breaths of summer. The figure howled, a bone-chilling sound. The shadows twisted and spiraled, attempting to swallow her whole. Never before had she felt such cold, such darkness that threatened to swallow her spirit. But she couldn't give in. Not now. With all her might, she pulled Jack and Emily to her chest, gripping them tightly. The shadows screamed, retreating from the light that sprang from the journal and enveloped her family. But just as hope swelled, a haunting laughter echoed through the fields. The ground trembled beneath them, and the rules began to resonate louder and louder, drowning out even their cries. You've only delayed the inevitable, it taunted. In a frantic haze, Sarah turned her children. We have to run. We have to. But before she could finish, the field erupted in chaotic energy. The darkness coiled, striking like a living serpent. The journal slipped from her grasp, pages catching the wind and scattering as the shadows rushed in, devouring the light. She heard Jack's voice, cracked and fearful. Catch in the wind? Mom, where do we go? A sickening sense of foreboding filled the air. Some rules weren't just warnings, they were the very shackles holding them. And the true horror awaited them if they couldn't break free. What unseen force had pulled them into this nightmare? And was this the price of reckoning with ancient evil? As they fled, the weight of a terrible truth loomed behind them. The darkness pressed in around them, thick and suffocating, as Sarah clutched her children tight. In the panic, the cries of the shadows wove into an almost audible tapestry, a cacophony blending with the rustling corn, echoing despair and dread. They started to run, but the ground beneath their feet felt unstable, shifting like quicksand. Each stride an act of sheer will. Just keep moving, Sarah yelled, directing her trembling heart into the words. She didn't know where they were running exactly, only that away was better than standing still. Behind them, she sensed the figure, a sentient nightmare creeping closer, the laughter still clawing at her sanity. The echoes of its malign glee drummed between her ears, creating a rhythm of fear. Jack stumbled beside her, looking back toward the darkness with wide, terrified eyes. Mom, what is that thing? Just focus on my voice. Don't look back, she shouted, but panic quaked in her own voice. Shadows flickered between the corn, like hungry mouths whispering secrets meant to drown them in terror. Emily was silent, a near ghost beside them, her hand clenching Sarah's shirt desperately. The weight of dread pressed between them, an invisible fog suffocating their breaths. A chill ran through Sarah. Was Emily still there? Was she still with them? Or had the darkness whispered its dreadful promises into her mind too? She dared not look. She needed to believe her children were with her. Then, from the edge of her vision, Sarah spotted a glimmer of light, a faint beam slicing through the corn. "There, I see light," she exclaimed, urging her legs to move faster, pushing through the overwhelming fear. The light pulsed, flickering like a heartbeat, almost beckoning. But with each desperate step, shadows swirled just outside their periphery, like claws reaching for the light, seeking to snuff it out. The chanting echoed again, louder now, almost mocking the rules twisting and tightening around them, binding them in ways they couldn't yet grasp. "Mom, please," Jack whimpered, chestnut curls sticking to his forehead with cold sweat. "What do we do? The rules in the journal, what if they come true? What if stop it? Don't listen to them." Her voice rose in raw defiance, heart pounding harder. She wasn't just fighting for their lives. She was fighting for their spirits. But as they burst into the clearing, the light vanished, swallowed up by the anxious corn. Darkness loomed, a predator closing in. In its depths, a sinister shape stretched high against the sky, flickering in and out of view, like a specter made of nightmares. There was no sanctuary, no safe place. The ground quaked as the shadows writhed and twisted around them, forming arms that snatched at their heels. She felt the presence of 100 unseen eyes scrutinizing, waiting for her to falter. "Keep running," she urged, pushing her legs harder, feeling the weight of despair threatening to crush her spirit. But the edges of her awareness cracked. The air turned thick, stifling. The laughter receded into a whisper. "What will you sacrifice to keep them safe?" Without warning, Emily's hand slipped from hers. "Emily!" A scream tore from Sarah's throat, panic flooding through her veins. She spun around, weaving through the oppressive darkness. Jack's terrified face stared back, his voice merging with the shadowy chant. "No, no," was all she could manage as she jetted back toward where she last felt Emily's warmth. Inside, dread rose like bile, and then she saw it, a figure engulfing her child, casting a monstrous silhouette. "Mommy, help me," Emily cried, her innocent voice trapped in a snare of despair. In that moment, the fear turned into a wild instinct, a surge of ferocity lighting her limbs. She lunged, a desperate grasp, but what pulled at her wasn't just the shadows. It was deeper, something far more ancient, far more sinister. As the darkness loomed closer, Sarah felt the weight of the journal behind her, lost in the chaos. It had been the key to their existence, but now it was irrelevant. "Trust not the shadows," she screamed, clawing at the darkness that clung to Emily, all-consuming, insatiable. But would her words even matter now? The shadows twisted their intent, coiling tighter around them, and she realized the terrifying truth. The rules weren't just shackles, they were choices. Choices she would have to face to save her children. But what price would she pay? With the figure consuming her vision, Sarah closed her eyes, heart racing. The moment hung, suspended in agony, as she braced herself for the emptiness that came with a choice she would soon have to make. And in the enveloping silence, a terrifying thought surfaced in her mind. What if the price of their safety was something she wasn't willing to lose? "Mommy!" Emily's voice rang out again, sharp and splintered, like glass shattering in silence. Sarah's stomach flipped, the sound echoing in the void and clawing at her heart. The shadows loomed, alive and ravenous, and she felt a sickening pull, a force threatening to yawn open beneath her. Each breath came harder, as if the air itself conspired against her, squeezing the very life out of her. The monstrous silhouette still enveloped Emily, a grotesque parody of her child's innocence. "Please, don't take her. I'll do anything. I promise," Sarah screamed, the rawness of her voice piercing through the heavy darkness. Dread seeped into every corner of her mind. What would she sacrifice? What could she possibly ever give that would suffice? But the weight of fear made her foolish, made her desperate. With adrenaline surging, she dashed forward. She was a mother, and nothing, not even the thick, suffocating shroud of shadows, could stand in her way. She reached out, fingers outstretched, fighting against the force that threatened to swallow Emily whole. "Emily, grab my hand. I'm right here." The faint glimmer of a connection flickered across the gaping void as she strained to bridge the distance. The being narrowed its focus, an unholy grin stretching wide, gleaming with an ancient malice. The laughter shifted. It morphed into a chorus of voices, each one dripping with taunts, echoing the fears that twisted in Sarah's mind. "Choose," the shadows hissed, their breath cold against her skin. "What will you trade for your child?" The question hung there, thick as the darkness itself. Images flashed through her mind, her husband's laughter, the warmth of summer afternoons spent on the lawn, their family gathered around a dinner table. It all felt so distant now, smothered by the dread that had taken root. Would she trade it all for Emily? "Mommy, please." Emily's voice wove through the chaos, pulling at her heart. Steeling herself, Sarah lunged forward, fingers brushing the dark edge of the shadow. A horrifying sensation tore through her, like shards of ice cascading down her spine. But she didn't let it slow her. "Nothing. I'll trade nothing. Just let her go." The monstrous figure paused, as if considering her words, malice simmering in its every shift. "So be it. Let the choice be made by the one who knows it best." Before Sarah could comprehend its meaning, the shadows twisted violently, pulling and tugging as if attempting to unravel everything she knew. The ground shook beneath her, a tempest of shadow and light merging into chaotic whirls. Emily's hand dangled just out of reach, her terrified eyes wide, pleading, "Keep your eyes on me. I won't let you go." Sarah howled, clawing through the thickening darkness, heart hammering in her chest. But in the throes of terror, reality flickered. The oppressive laughter morphed, shifting into her husband's voice, and suddenly Sarah found herself in a familiar space of memory, achingly vivid. She was back in their home, surrounded by laughter, sunlight shaving through the windows. "Don't you remember?" A whisper danced in her ear, sweet but sinister. "You already chose." Once the shadows coalesced into a memory of a choice made, a promise broken, a life traded. The screams of the cornfield faded away, leaving only the darkness collecting around her. "Mommy!" The sharpness of Emily's cry yanked her back, reeling into fear. The shadows flared, and reality warped, pushing her into a darkness deeper than she had ever known. "Emily!" she cried, but the darkness was relentless, shifting its cold breath against her skin. Suddenly, it struck her, a realization deeper than fear. She was part of the cycle, a pawn in a game spun by the shadows, and the choices had never really belonged to her. What if every decision led back to this moment? As the grip of darkness tightened, Sarah felt the terrible choice creeping closer with every heartbeat. The shadows rippled, their voices swirling in a seductive embrace. And then she heard it, a faint whisper, just beyond comprehension, holding the weight of truths long buried. "What will you sacrifice, Sarah?" The darkness clawed at her, an insatiable specter demanding an answer. She steeled herself with grim determination, but a chilling thought consumed her. What if the real price wasn't just of her own making, but a cost far greater than she could bear to imagine? As the shadows closed in, she understood some choices could shatter everything, and in the suffocating dark, she realized she had to choose not just for Emily but for herself, before they all fell into the abyss. What would be the final sacrifice? The looming darkness paused, as if waiting for her surrender. Time stretched, held like a taut string ready to snap, leaving Sarah on the edge of her own shattered heart. Would she break completely, or find strength buried in fear? What would she decide, knowing the true cost of each choice? The moment hung heavy, like a suffocating blanket draped over Sarah, waiting for her answer. She could feel the dark energy surrounding her, a pulsating force that beat in time with her racing heart. The shadows shifted, closing in tighter, eager eyes watching her every move. "Please," she cried, desperation cracking her voice. "Just let her go." But instead of a response, the darkness only thickened, filling her lungs with the bitterness of despair. An icy chill wrapped around her throat, constricting, pulling her closer to the abyss. In that moment, another shriek echoed, this time, not from Emily but from within the very shadows themselves. "Every choice has a price, dear Sarah," they whispered, their voices churning like a storm. "You must act or risk losing everything." Time twisted, stretched, and in her mind, flashes of her life surged forward, each memory sharp, bright, and painfully clear. Laughter with her husband, sunny days spent with Emily, the warmth of love that once filled their home. And then the shadows cast fissures through those memories, crackling with darkness, revealing secrets she had buried deep. "Your bliss was never real," they taunted. "You traded your potential for comfort, didn't you?" But now another hideous laugh echoed, and Sarah could feel the price clawing at her very essence. She clenched her teeth, fighting against the suffocating anxiety threatening to swallow her whole. "I won tea," she whispered fiercely, shaking her head. "I won tea, give in." But the darkness surged, now wrapped around her legs, a molasses-like grip that threatened to pull her under. Emily's tiny hands disappeared further into the void, and Sarah could feel each desperate second slipping away. "Choose," the voices urged again, insistent, writhing around her. "You can have her back. Just relinquish that part of you that believes in hope, the part that has always let you down." "No," she screamed, her voice a brittle snap in the chaos. She could feel her soul tearing, a horrific pull between the shadows and the love she had for her daughter. Dread twisted like a knife within her chest as the truth dawned. What if she had lost too much already? "Emily," she whispered, reaching out once more, searching for her daughter's light against this encroaching darkness. She could sense Emily's presence, a flicker of warmth in the chilling void. Suddenly a flicker in the shadows caught her eye, a shimmering echo that felt abyssally familiar. Secrets long buried unfolded before her. Recollections of nights she's tried to forget, the whispers of a haunted childhood. Her own demons reborn in this haunted place. As the truth unfolded, she remembered the fear that had clung to her when she was a little girl, the terror of her mother's ominous warnings, the crude rules she'd been forced to follow. Never enter the cornfield after dark. Avoid the old barn. Never make a deal with the shadows. The horror echoed back. Not all promises made were meant to be kept. And yet here she was. She heard Emily's voice once more, fragile against the dark. "Mommy, help me." Sarah's heart pounded. Could she really break the cycle? Every instinct screamed at her, urging her to act, to save her child. But the realization twisted like a dagger in her gut. Sacrificing the very essence of her being would not just save Emily. It could doom her forever. "Emily," Sarah cried, standing her ground as she remembered. "We're stronger than this darkness. You're strong." With every ounce of will, she grasped tightly to her resolve, despite the chilling influence pressing against her mind. But a sudden weight bore down on her. The shadows surged violently, threatening to consume everything she fought for. Time felt jagged, strung out, and fraying. Every second echoed with uncertainty and pain. As she faced the crushing darkness, a chilling realization gnawed at her mind. What if the rules were not meant just to protect, but to ensnare? "I will not choose fear," she screamed defiantly. "I will not surrender." In that moment, the shadows recoiled slightly, and a flicker of hope pierced through, mingling precariously with the encroaching dread. But would it be enough? The grip of darkness loosened just enough for her to glimpse Emily's frightened face, a beacon of hope within the shadows. Yet, the oppressive silence returned, weighty and heavy, holding them at the precarious edge of salvation or ruin. And then, another voice seeped through the chaos, sinister and sweet, echoing in the deep recesses of her mind. "The final rule has yet to be revealed. Can you truly escape the fate written in the shadows?" A rush of cold air enveloped Sarah as she blinked in disbelief, feeling the truth slingshot back toward her like a pendulum swinging toward disaster. The darkness stirred and shivered, eager for resolution. What more would she uncover? Would she dare to confront the very foundation of her fears before it consumed them both? The shadows shuddered, as if anticipating her decision. The air crackled with anticipation as Sarah steadied herself, drawing in shaky breaths. The darkness swirled threateningly around her, instinctively feeding on her fear, waiting for her to falter. She stared into the depths, feeling the pull of the shadows. Each pulse of despair brought a tightness to her throat, forcing her to choke back tears. Emily, the name felt like a lifeline, fragile but real. "Mommy, please," her daughter's voice shimmered through the dark. It was thin and trembled with sadness, pushing past the dread binding her. With renewed vigor, Sarah pressed deeper into the void, breaking through the chilling stillness. "I'll save you," she shouted, her voice reverberating against the walls of darkness. "You are stronger than this." In response, the shadows seemed to shudder as if struck by her resolve. The murmur of twisted laughter faded momentarily, replaced instead by an unsettling quiet that felt heavy with expectation. Then, out of that silence, a shape began to form. A figure cloaked in dark fabric, its face obscured, stepped toward her. Sarah's heart raced. Who are you?" The figure's voice was smooth like wax. "I am the keeper of secrets," it hissed softly. "You seek to rescue your child, but the cost is steep." "What do you mean?" Sarah demanded, a flicker of defiance igniting her spirit. "I don't care. Just let her go." The keeper said, "But the rules must be honored. You wish to free her, but to do that you must answer the riddle of shadows." Each word plucked at her nerves. "What riddle?" The keeper's shadowy form pointed to a small, luminescent orb hovering just above the ground, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "Within that orb lies the memory of your past answers buried deep. In order to find Emily, you must face what you fear most." Terror coiled in Sarah's stomach. Memories rushed forth, entwined with echoes of laughter and pain. She could feel flickers of warmth from her life, soon disturbed by the creeping darkness that hadn't let her go. "No," she shrieked, instinctively stepping back. "I want to face them." The keeper tilted its head, a mockery of curiosity. "Can you find Emily without confronting what lurks beneath? Can you truly love her if you hide from yourself?" Sarah felt her knees tremble. The memories clawed at her, demanding attention. She hesitated, a deep-rooted fear surfacing. The nights she lay awake, haunted by nightmares of what she thought she knew, discarded truths, shattered illusions. Face them, or lose her forever, the keeper taunted, grinning through the darkness. Suddenly, the orb expanded into a swirling vortex of colors and visions, pulling Sarah toward it like a magnet. Each flash was a moment she had tried to forget: her father's anger, her mother's warnings. The cracks in her childhood laughter grew wider as she sensed her reality breaking apart. "Emily!" she cried, reaching for the light, but the vortex pulled harder. She stumbled, almost falling into it, and 1,000 voices swirled around her, echoing her greatest fears. Desperation surged as she pushed against the tide of shadows, fighting back with every ounce of her strength. "I will not." The darkness rippled, agitated, and she saw Emily's frightened face flickering at the edge of her vision. Her heart ached, and suddenly, she understood. Confronting her past was the only way to save her daughter. But would the truth bring salvation or doom? As the shadows tightened around her, Sarah stepped forward, heart racing, ready to face the specters that awaited her in the swirling abyss. "Show me," she yelled, challenging the darkness, determined to uncover the truth that could either set them free or condemn them forever. But as she plunged into the depths, a whisper curled around her, one that chilled her to the bone. "You think you can escape? The shadows have plans for you both, and they are just beginning." A rush of wind whipped through the darkness, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and decay. What were the true consequences of unveiling her past? Would she find Emily's light, or would the shadows consume them both? The vortex swallowed Sarah whole, a maelstrom of colors and sounds clawing at her senses. Visions flashed by in a blur: a girl running through tall grass, a hand reaching out, then darkness swallowing the laughter. She felt weightless and heavy all at once, suspended between realities. "Mommy, please." Emily's voice echoed like a haunting bell, each plea thrust into the turmoil choking her spirit. It slashed through the hysteria, pulling her back, reminding her of what was at stake. And then, she landed. Hard, the ground beneath her felt cold and damp, like she had fallen into the depths of a forgotten grave. Struggling to rise, Sarah blinked against the crushing darkness, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. What lay ahead was an oppressive landscape, eerily familiar. It was her childhood home, decayed and decrepit, the very house she had tried to escape. The air was thick with the stench of mildew and despair, a lingering reminder of long-buried secrets. "No, not here," she whispered, her breath hitching. Panic clawed at her throat. Each step forward felt like a trek through a nightmare, with shadows flitting just out of her sight. The walls loomed like sentinels, watching, waiting to devour her. "Face it," she muttered, shaking her head, fighting against the rising tide of memories. She approached the front door, its paint peeling like the facade of a forgotten life. Gathering strength, she plunged her hand into the freezing doorknob, twisting it with a defiance that felt foreign in this suffocating place. The door creaked open, revealing a living room shrouded in heavy shadows. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light escaping the cracked windows. Her heart pounded, thudding against her ribs, each beat a drum urging her to flee. "Emily!" she cried again, forcing her voice to emanate through the suffocating air. The room felt alive, its cries muffled, haunting her senses. "I'm coming for you." As she stepped further inside, the past clawed at her mind. She remembered the fights, the accusations, the icy stares. Her father's fury flashed before her like a knife's edge, the way his wrath had shaped her life, tempestuous and cruel. "You are unworthy." His voice echoed back to her from the shadows, distorted and laced with disdain. Terror gripped Sarah, but she pressed on. Every footfall echoed through the cavernous silence, every corner sprawled with remnants of her childhood, the faded toys, the family portraits twisted with resentment. "I'm not unworthy," she shouted defiantly, her voice gaining strength. "I am Emily's mother. I will not be chained to this." In an instant, figures materialized in the gloom, familiar yet grotesque. Her mother, eyes wide in perpetual disappointment. Her father, hands clenched, shadowy anger radiating from him like heat off asphalt. Each emotion twisted their features until they were unrecognizable. "You abandoned us," they hissed in unison, filling the space with their accusations, their tortured cries slicing through her. "No, I tried to survive," Sarah replied, her voice a raw scream. Every ounce of pain coursed through her, a cascade of regrets. "I won't hide anymore." Yet, as she confronted them, reality warped. The room twisted and warped, the boundaries dissolving. The figures moved closer, the air thickening with their bitter rage, until the walls around her began to bleed shadows, pooling on the floor like ink. "Face the sins of your past." The keeper's voice echoed ominously, resonating within her chest. The ground trembled beneath her. "Emily," she pleaded. Desperation surged anew, frantic and relentless. "Where are you?" Laughter erupted from the shadows, sickening and vile. "Your past will eat you alive if you do not embrace it," the keeper taunted, each word dripping with malice. "Will you lose her too? Or will you become the very thing you fear?" Caught between the echoes of her past and the specter of impending doom, Sarah clutched her head. The burden threatened to crush her under its weight. "Choose." The atmosphere thickened, the walls pulsating with energy. But before she could respond, the darkness began to swirl faster, the laughter rising to a deafening pitch. Were the shadows laughing at her mind, or were they preparing to consume the last remnants of her courage? The darkness shattered like glass, fragments of lost memories piercing Sarah's mind. She screamed, the sound mingling with the cacophony of laughter that roared around her. Mocking, relentless. The shadows twisted above her, ominous tendrils reaching out, suffocating her spirit. "Enough!" she cried, her voice breaking through the chaos. She would not let them drag her under. Not again. With each heartbeat, the house shifted, the walls creaked and groaned, as if disturbed by her defiance. The once familiar space contorted, revealing a narrow hallway that hadn't been there before. It beckoned her with a sickly allure, the air saturated with a stench of rot that clawed at her throat. She swallowed hard, her instincts screaming at her to flee. But she had no choice. Emily was in danger, and this malignant realm was an echo of her past. She had to confront it to find her daughter. Heart thundering, she stepped into the dark corridor. As she moved forward, the whispers coalesced, weaving tales of betrayal and heartbreak. Sarah clenched her fists, spotting a flickering light ahead. Hope surged within her, a frayed thread in the tumultuous storm. With each step, the light pulsed, narrowing into a door at the end of the hallway. It was a stark contrast to the shadows, illuminating her path with a harsh white glow that felt both inviting and foreboding. As she approached, the old wooden door creaked open slightly, as if awaiting her arrival. "Emily," she whispered, the name hanging heavy in the suffocating silence. The air shifted. Suddenly, the echoes of laughter returned, sharper and more taunting. The door swung open, revealing a room beyond, and Sarah staggered as a blast of icy wind knocked the breath from her lungs. Inside, the walls dripped with dark, viscous liquid blood, or tears. It formed a pool in the middle of the room, shimmering like a pool of nightmares. That I in the center of the grotesque tableau. A figure stood, a mirror image of herself, eyes black and hollow, twisted with despair. "You can't hide from what you are," it hissed, voice echoing with all the hurt she had ever felt. "You are your own worst enemy." "Shut up," Sarah gasped, recoiling. Every word cut deep, awakening the dark fears she had buried for years. Destructive memories spiraled in her mind. This was a trap, a sick reflection meant to ensnare her. Whose fault is it that Emily is gone? The doppelganger called, laughing sharply. "You were always afraid, always running. You can't escape your past, Sarah." She backed away, her heart pounding in her ears. This was the embodiment of her guilt, the twisted creation of the torment she had tried to forget. But she wouldn't give in. A flicker of strength ignited within her. "Emily is not gone," she shouted, her voice rebounding defiantly in the small space. "I will find her. I'll save her." The laugh that responded was not the cold laughter from before. It was darker, closer, more intimate. "Then enter the pool of your own making," it beckoned, and the darkness pulsated around her like a heartbeat. In that moment, Sarah realized the truth. This was no simple fight against shadows. It was a battle against her own psyche, a war against her twisted love for her daughter, a love that had driven her to the edge of despair. "Face your memories or let them consume you," it mocked, as the pool shimmered, drawing her in closer. With a deep breath, adrenaline flooded her system. She had to leap into the darkness and her own sins, confront every fear, every regret. Suddenly, the shadows surged, carving a path through the swirling mass of delirium. "Emily!" she screamed once more, and then, with fierce resolve, she plunged into the abyss. But as she sank beneath the surface, another voice broke through the sound of her daughter's laughter. Faint but clear, it reverberated through the void, guiding her deeper. "Mommy, help!" As the darkness closed in around her, Sarah understood. To save Emily, she must confront the monsters that lurked not just in this shadow world, but within herself. Would she have the strength to escape the very sins that shaped her? The cold engulfed Sarah like a vice as she sank deeper into the abyss. The laughter grew louder, echoing all around her, a twisted melody that tangled with her own racing thoughts. It was Emily's voice tugging at her heart, reassuring yet haunting. It sent shivers racing down her spine, but she pressed on, driven by the fierce need to protect her daughter. Darkness enveloped her, twisting her reality. She could feel the weight of her guilt pressing against her chest, threatening to pull her down further. Memories flooded back, sharp and vivid days spent losing herself in guilt-ridden thoughts, nights haunted by what-ifs and missed opportunities. Now, they rose before her like specters, faces familiar yet shrouded in shadow. "Mommy," the voice whispered again, softer now. It felt just out of reach, evoking both a sense of longing and dread as she plunged deeper. The water transformed. It thickened around her, wrapping her in a shroud of darkness that felt alive. Tendrils of shadow slipped around her limbs, pulling her toward the endless depths. Panic surged. What if she didn't find Emily? What if she was lost forever in her own torment? She focused on Emily's laughter, guiding her through the chaos. The shadows shifted, swirling like a storm, revealing fleeting glimpses of her past. A room filled with laughter, the warmth of summer days, the gentle embrace of a motherless love. But those memories twisted, morphing into nightmares. The sight of a child lost in the chaos, eyes wide with fear, shadows pulling her away. "No!" Sarah screamed into the encroaching dark, battling against the pull of despair. "I want to lose you." As if in response, the darkness convulsed, and the very fabric of this shadow realm began to change. Sarah felt a sudden surge of strength within her, a flicker of light in the dreadful expanse. It pushed back against the shadows around her. "Face your fears." A voice boomed, deeper and more ominous than before. The memories twisted again, but this time, they shifted into something more tangible: her failures, regrets, and the haunting question of whether she had done enough to protect her daughter. The air around her crackled with energy. The memories loomed before her like massive stone walls. "Do you really think you can save her?" The voice mocked, dripping with malice. "All you've done is push her away." Sarah felt the weight of those words, sharp and heavy, but they only fueled her resolve. "Emily is stronger than you think," she shouted into the churning void, her heart racing. She grasped for the images of her daughter, memories of laughter bursting forth like fireworks in the dark. "I want to let you take her." With every ounce of her being, she reached out. Light flared from her hands as she confronted her fears, the memories flooding back in a chaotic rush. She became aware of the pool around her, a churning sea of doubt and despair. "I choose love," she cried, and suddenly, the shadows recoiled. The laughter turned into a shriek of agony, peeling back as light poured from her heart. Then, a gust of wind swept through, carried her deeper, threatening to split her from her focus. But she wouldn't allow it. The darkness writhing around her began to break, cracks slicing through like lightning in a storm. "Mommy!" Emily's voice rang clear, piercing the chaos. As her own laughter echoed in the air, Sarah leaped toward it with all her strength. Suddenly, a light blazed from the depths. Sarah shot toward it, embracing the sound of her daughter's laughter, her heart pounding with fierce hope. But just before she reached it, the shadows clawed back with a vengeance, wrapping around her like shackles of ice. "Is this really what you want?" The voice returned, dripping with grotesque pleasure. "Or is it just another trick of your mind?" As the shadows tightened around her, refusing to let go, she struggled against the darkness, ready to fight for Emily, ready to confront every twisted edge of her past. What awaited them on the other side? Was hope mere illusion, or was that shimmering light the gateway to freedom? With a final scream, Sarah challenged the darkness, but the response was like thunder, darkness crashing down all around her. And in that pivotal moment, when everything hung in the balance, Sarah realized she was not just trapped in a nightmare. She was fighting for the truth. What revelation would she uncover next? And would she lose herself in the process? The darkness surged around Sarah, a living entity eager to crush her spirit. The grip tightened like a vice, and shadows clawed at her limbs, seeking to pull her deeper into despair. But in that swirling chaos, she felt something shift inside her, a determination born from love, a flame ignited in the trenches of her heart. "Emily!" she screamed, her voice piercing through the suffocating gloom. "I'm coming for you." With every beat of her heart, she summoned the strength that had sustained her during the darkest nights, the quiet resilience that whispered, "You can do this." The shadows howled in anger at her defiance, a ravenous tide crashing against her. But they weren't invincible. With each step, she envisioned herself surrounded by that shimmering light, the warmth of her daughter's laughter chasing the darkness away. It was a lifeline, a rope of hope in a tempest of despair. Suddenly, the shadows shifted, forming a chaotic tapestry of her past. Memories shot forward, bright and vivid laughter echoing, moments of tenderness, the feeling of Emily's small hand in hers. But with each enchanting memory came the bittersweet pang of fear, the regret of choices left unmade, words left unspoken. I won't lose you, Emily. She propelled herself blindly forward, weaving through twisted memories that threatened to ensnare her. You must be stronger than your past, she told herself, feeling the resilience bubbling in her chest. With each step, she pushed away the dark thoughts that clawed to drag her down. And then, she saw her daughter. Emily stood there, small and trembling, ensnared in a cocoon of shadows. Her eyes were wide with fear, reflecting the chilling horror of the abyss they were surrounded by. "Mommy!" she cried, her voice quivering, a fragile note breaking against despair's symphony. Every nerve in Sarah's body ignited, the need to reach her child snapping through the haze. "You have to believe in us," Sarah shouted, taking one last leap forward. The shadows reached out, snapping and biting at her heels like rabid creatures desperate to pull her back. But she would not falter. Not now. A surge of wildfire coursed through her veins, igniting every ounce of courage she had within. "I believe in you, Emily. I believe in us." Surging toward her daughter, Sarah felt the shadows hesitate, recoiling as her voice rang clear, cutting through their clamorous laughter. Embracing the warmth of their love, she extended her hand toward Emily, reaching through the suffocating blackness that sought to ensnare them both. "Take my hand." With a burst of strength, she dove into the swirling darkness, grasping her daughter's hand. The force was almost too much to bear as Emily's warmth seeped through, a tether pulling them together. Light erupted from their clasped hands, a brilliant burst that shattered the shadows like glass. The shadows screamed like a wounded beast, thundering around them, and yet Sarah held on tight, her heart racing in synchrony with Emily's. Together, they stood firm against the encroaching dread. "Feel the love," Sarah screamed, necessity weeping through her veins. The scream of the shadows was matched by a sudden reflection from the pool of darkness. Their connection illuminated the very truth Sarah had sought. They were eternal, bound by love that could not be severed nor broken. With one final push of power and unity fueled by their love, the shadows broke apart, light spilling through like the dawn after an unending night. The darkness shattered, revealing a world once more bathed in golden sunlight, warm and welcoming as if the fear that had gripped them for so long had never existed. Panting, Sarah and Emily stumbled together into a vast expanse. Around them, the cursed land began to glow with an ethereal brightness, as if healing had begun where shadows once thrived. Behind them, the wailing darkness was erased, replaced by the sweet scent of tilled earth, the rustling of corn swaying peacefully in the wind, a return to innocence as they embraced. Feeling the warmth of each other's hearts, Sarah's soul soared. She had stepped beyond the threshold of her fears, finally free to recreate the life she longed for with Emily. In this new land, shadows of the past lingered as faded memories reminding her of their strength. The true sacrifice she made was not her hope, but the chains of fear that had held her tight. It was the promise to always trust in love, to face the darkness together, no matter what lay ahead. And as the world around them shifted to brighter days, Sarah felt a power within. Fears transformed into lessons learned, every choice mined from the lessons bounded upon love. "Come on," she whispered, taking Emily's hand with renewed conviction. "Let us go home." As they stepped forward, the sun shone brighter, a glorious promise for a future free of shadows. Remember, every choice leads to light. Every moment is precious. If you enjoyed this conclusion, you need to subscribe now to catch more exclusive stories like this. Smash that like button now to support the channel and ensure you don't miss our next adventure. Flood the comments with your thoughts and reactions. We want to hear all your theories. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible ending. Thank you for being part of this journey, and let us dive into the next story together.